Hello, welcome to Talking Europe on France 24 with me, Catherine Nicholson. Now, I wanted to start today's programme with the European Union's motto, United in Diversity. I wonder how many of you knew that actually was the EU's motto and whether you think the EU lives up to it. The European Union is, of course, home to diverse cultures and languages across its 27 member states. But does it defend the diversity of its population? In 2020, the European Commission adopted a 5-year EU anti-racism plan to work on this very question. And as part of it, it's appointed the first ever EU anti-racism coordinator. Well, Michaela Moua is a former professional basketball player from Finland with Ivorian heritage and experience working in the Finnish Justice Ministry on issues of racism and ethnicity-based discrimination. And she is our guest today. Michaela Moua, welcome to Talking Europe.
Thank you very much, Catherine. Thank you for having me on your show. Happy to be here.
Well, I'd like firstly to ask about this brand new job that you're the first person to ever hold. What does the job entail and why did you apply for it?
Yes, indeed. Thank you. Thank you for this question. It's very relevant. It is indeed, first of all, it's the first EU anti-racism action plan. And as you mentioned, the appointment of the EU anti-racism coordinator was part of the deliverables, in a sense, of the action plan. So my role is basically to ensure the successful implementation of this action plan throughout these 5 years. I'll be working closely with the member states, of course, in addition to different relevant stakeholders working on issues of anti-racism and equality and fundamental rights, such as the European Parliament, civil society organizations I will be working closely with, as well as academia, to really inform the anti-racism policy of the Commission.
And in terms of evaluating the problems of racism and ethnicity-based discrimination in Europe, can you give us a sense of your evaluation of how bad these problems are?
We know that discrimination based on racial or ethnic origin is prohibited in the EU. However, it's something that remains a fact, and this has been proven through a multitude of surveys and reports and studies done by, for instance, the European Agency for Fundamental Rights. We have a large portion of Europeans who experience racism and discrimination in their daily lives, who experience, they don't have the same life opportunities. It affects their well-being and also oftentimes their personal safety. So this is really what the EU Anti-Racism Action Plan was built on, to try to better the situation and ensure that all Europeans are able to live lives free of racism and discrimination.
And a big topic of debate in certain areas is about how we measure racism and discrimination. The issue of statistics, it varies greatly from one country to another. For example, here in France, it's actually quite taboo, the idea of collecting ethnicity-based statistics, whereas in the United Kingdom, it's quite routine when people apply to large organisations to be asked, what's your ethnicity? The idea being that that would help to identify discrimination, whereas in France, people fear that it could increase it. Where do you stand? Should we be more routinely collecting these statistics, or could it be dangerous?
As you mentioned, different member states have very different contexts as far as how the issue of collecting equality data is seen. And by equality data, we mean any kind of information that gives us information about the state of equality. And the Commission is really of the opinion that we need to step up and harmonize the collection of equality data across the EU to ensure that we have reliable and comparable and regular data to really evaluate the state of equality in the Union. But this, of course, means that we have to have safeguards in place. We have to ensure that constitutional norms are being adhered to, EU data protection legislation, as well as the EU Charter for Fundamental Rights. It really is such an incredible tool to make visible the lived realities of people facing racism and discrimination. Mm-hmm. It not only makes visible the experiences of racism and discrimination, but also the structural elements of inequalities in society by showing, in a sense, the patterns that might be hidden at times. And second of all, data really is important to ensure that policy is built on evidence and is as effective as possible and does not indeed leave anyone behind.
Well, let's look then at some of the main areas of the action plan. It's a vast subject, as we said. What specific areas of action are you looking at the EU level?
The EU action plan, it's really a very ambitious and comprehensive action plan covering many areas of policy, from education to employment, all the way to digitalization, media, etc. And one of my really main objectives during my mandate is to ensure that the combat against racism or anti-racism is mainstreamed into all EU policy making. Another important aim of mine is, of course, member states play such an important role in the combat against racism. And here we are working, and here also the Commission has encouraged through the communication in the action plan for member states to draft and adopt their respective national action plans against racism by the end of 2022, so by the end of this year. And here we are, of course, working very closely with member states through a dedicated subgroup, and also providing the member states with tools to such as guiding principles and indicators to ensure that the process of the drafting and implementation and eventually monitoring of progress is possible, and that we're able to stick to these objectives and timelines. And thirdly, one issue that is extremely important to our work is working closely with civil society, creating a structure and a meaningful collaboration with civil society. We know that civil society has played such an important role of this action plan really coming into fruition. To begin with, they advocated for such a comprehensive sign from the Commission for quite a long time. And now that it's here, we do need to listen and have our work be informed by those experiences and the expertise of those people who are really on the front line and who understand the reality of what is going on.
One area that we do touch on occasionally is the lack of representation of people from ethnic minorities in European institutions, in governments. At the European Commission, for example, there's no European Commissioner from an ethnic minority background. Is this a problem, this lack of representation?
We realize that we have to also do this work, this work inside the Commission, and really lead by example. We have quite an extensive range of actions put in place. Finally, especially with actions that are in this action plan relating to ensuring that diversity and inclusion moves forward in the Commission. We're not only looking at existing structures of how to bring, for instance, a more diverse applicant pool into the Commission, and seeing if there might be some gaps in these structures that are kind of standing in the way of this taking place. And also recently, we had our first diversity and inclusion survey to really map the diversity of the Commission staff, to see where we stand, and not only that, not only to see the diversity of the Commission, but also how inclusive of a workplace is the Commission, to ensure that then when we do get good, skilled people in the Commission, that they feel that this is really a place that they feel comfortable and want to work. But also putting in place new structures, such as the new Diversity and Inclusion Office, which has been fully operational since May of last year, to really push for these issues in the Commission. It's not really just to have a diverse workforce, right? What, for instance, such an institution as the Commission or the European Parliament we have such an important role in when you think about our tasks in proposing legislation, drafting policy, and if you don't have people in those rooms, around those tables, in those decision-making positions and places that have a variety of worldviews, that have a variety of experiences, of lived experiences that they can also bring into this policymaking, what ends up happening is we don't have policy and legislation that really achieves its full potential, and then some people are left out. So the ultimate aim here also is really to ensure that, for instance, the Commission is able to do its job better through having these different kinds of this diversity in decision-making positions.
Well, Michaela, Moua, plenty of areas to work on, as you say. The action plan running until 2025. I'm sure we'll check back in with you to see how it's progressing. Thank you for being our guest today.
Thank you very much for having me.
And thanks to you for watching the programme. See you soon on Talking Europe.